Hi all, today we will continue studying informal fallacies. Today we will focus on the fallacies of unwarranted assumption and on the fallacies of diversion. Remember that next Wednesday is the exam on this chapter. So what are the fallacies of unwarranted assumption? They are arguments that assume the truth of some unproved or questionable claim. The first fallacy of unwarranted assumption that we will study today is called begging the question. There are three types of begging the question fallacy. In one type, the fallacy occurs when a premise is simply reworded in the conclusion. For example, the Beatles are the greatest band of all time, so it is safe to say that no band has ever been better than the Beatles. In a second type, called circular reasoning, a set of statements seem to support each other with no clear beginning or end point. For example, you can believe him because he never lies. Furthermore, since he always tells the truth, he is someone that you can believe. A third type of begging the question it happens when the argument assumes certain key information that may be controversial or is not supported by facts. For example, the murder of a human being is always wrong. Therefore, capital punishment is always wrong. The second fallacy is called complex question. The fallacy occurs when a single question actually contains multiple parts and an unestablished hidden assumption. For example, do you still cheat on your taxes? This question hides the assumption that you used to cheat on your taxes. Even if you answer no, you are accepting that you used to cheat on your taxes. Now let's analyze the two ways in which the appeal to ignorance fallacy can occur. An argument built on a position of ignorant claims, and this is the first way in which this fallacy can occur, that a statement must be true because it has not proven to be false. For example, UFOs must exist because no one has proven that they do not exist. The second way in which this fallacy can occur is when an argument built on a position of ignorance claims that a statement must be false because it has not been proven to be true. For example, there is definitely no life anywhere else in the universe. This follows from the fact that we have never received signals from any part of space. Now, the appeal to an unqualified authority fallacy happens when an argument relies on the opinions of people who either have no expertise, training, or knowledge relevant to the issue at hand, or whose testimony is not trustworthy. Advertisement is full of examples of this fallacy. For instance, I'm Nick Panning, quarterback of the LA Seals. I have been eating Otis for breakfast since I was a kid. Otis tastes great, and they have all the nutrition kids need. You should get some for your kids today. The last fallacy of unwarranted assumption that we will study is the false dichotomy fallacy. The fallacy occurs when it is assumed that only two choices are possible when in fact others exist. For example, either we give up some traditional basic freedoms or we lose the war on terror. Now let's study the fallacies of diversion. A fallacy of diversion occurs when the meaning of terms or phrases are changed, intentionally or unintentionally, within the argument, or when our attention is purposely or accidentally diverted from the issue at hand. The first fallacy of diversion that we will study is equivocation. The fallacy occurs when the conclusion of an argument relies on an intentional or unintentional shift in the meaning of a term or phrase in the premises. For example, that looks like a hard outfit to get into. The factory that made it must have used really hard material. So perhaps you should wash the outfit in some fabric softener. The word hard is first used as difficult, an outfit difficult to get into, but then it is used as rigid or strong. Another fallacy of diversion is called a straw person. The fallacy occurs when an argument is misrepresented in order to create a new argument that can be easily refuted. The new argument is so weak that it is made of a straw. The arguer then falsely claims that his opponent's real argument has been defeated. For example, Democrats promise that a government healthcare system will reduce the cost of healthcare. But as the economist Thomas Sowell has pointed out, government healthcare will not reduce the cost. It will simply refuse to pay the cost. And who will suffer the most when they ration care? The sick, the elderly, and the disabled, of course. The America I know and love is not one in which my parents or my baby with Down syndrome will have to stand in front of Obama's vet panel so his bureaucrats can decide based on a subjective judgment of their level of productivity in society whether they are worthy of health care. Such a system is downright evil. As you can notice, former Senator Palin is misrepresenting and exaggerating how the healthcare system will work. As you can infer, the government's proposal will not work as she is suggesting, just refusing healthcare to sick people. The third fallacy of diversion is called red herring. The fallacy occurs when someone completely ignores an opponent's position and changes the subject, diverting the discussion in a new direction. For example, the dangers of nuclear power plants have been overstated. Don't forget that we are caught in an international economic war over oil controlled by Middle Eastern dictatorial regimes that brutally punish any dissent and refuse to acknowledge democratic principles. Also because shadowy international oil cartels manipulate oil prices. Our economy and our individual rights are violated. If we want to take charge of our lives, we must build more nuclear power plants. This, the speaker is diverting the discussion about the dangers of nuclear power plants and instead is addressing the international economic war over oil. It is important not to confuse the different fallacies of diversion. I will compare the straw person fallacy and the red herring fallacy. Let's imagine an argument about abortion that is strong and cogent. The argument defines abortion as an interruption of pregnancy and concludes that it is a procedure exercised over a fetus. A straw person fallacy will express argument 1 in other words, but it is actually a new and weak argument. It expresses argument 1 in their own words, but we observe that they are actually creating a new argument that is weak. For example, this person says that the argument 1 encourages women to have an abortion for any reason and under any circumstance, which was not part of argument 1. The red herring fallacy just ignores argument 1 and they start criticizing the murder of babies. That is another topic because, as it was established in argument 1, abortion is a procedure exercised over a fetus, which is not a baby. And in the case of the red herring fallacy, this person just begins talking about the murder of babies. The fourth fallacy of diversion that we will study is called misleading precision. It happens when a claim appears to be statistically significant, but it is not. For example, in order to clear out inventory, we have reduced our used car prices by 20%. These prices won't last forever, so you will better hurry in and buy one of these cars before the sale ends. You don't know, for example, if they increase the prices before making this offer. The last fallacy of diversion that we will study is called missing the point. It happens when premises that seem to lead logically to one conclusion are used instead to support an unexpected conclusion. For example, The Affordable Care Act has been difficult to implement. There were system failures in which people could not log on to a government website, and even cases of people's private information being compromised. Therefore, we should never let the government try to solve social problems. The conclusion, as you can notice, is excessively general and is not supported by the premises. That was all for today. Remember to complete exercises 2, 8, and 15 of exercises 4D1 and exercises 8, 16, 24, 32, and 44 of exercises 4D2. Submit your answers on Brightspace by July the 24th at midnight. Have a good rest of the day.